Hi. My spouse and I watched The Next Doctor. The first half was pretty good. I remember the whole, there's this guy that the show is pretending is the Doctor, but clearly isn't actually going to be the Doctor. I remember that being crap. It's actually quite nice. It's kind of cool. It's silly. And the show is very clear that something is wrong and that he's not actually called the Doctor. I'm not sure you should have called it The Next Doctor, but whatever. So the first half is good, and then they resolve what's going on with him at the midpoint. And then the show sort of just treads water for the back half. In my last video, some people, we had some chat in the comments about, what to do about Russell T Davies and, what should be done going forward. And someone said episodes should be an hour plus. And there is some weight to that. Like Peter Capaldi's series, I think it's series 9, where every episode was a two-parter, apart from the one with the sleep one, the crap sleep episode. That is a supporting argument, because always two-parters, they're basically just 90-minute episodes with a gap in the middle. But The Next Doctor is actually a really good counterexample, because The Next Doctor, the first half is really good, and if it was a standard episode, you'd be 30 minutes on that and then wrap it up for 10 minutes. But instead, because it's an hour, because it's a special, it has to then pull something else out of the bag for the last half, and it just sort of devolves into nonsense. So watch that, and then we watch Waters of Mars. In my opinion, Waters of Mars is fucking terrible. People love this episode. I have no idea why. Probably vibes, but I don't want to get into the full thing because I am honestly fed up with going on about this fucking show. But I have two very specific complaints about Waters of Mars. The first is, the Doctor shows up. Okay, so in Waters of Mars, the Doctor shows up on Miss Mars base, and shit's happening, and he's going, oh no, you guys are all these people. You're amazing space adventurers or whatever. And he remembers, oh shit, these people are all going to die. The episode is about these amazing people and the monsters they're going up against. And we'll get to the monsters, but all we have for a reason to care about the rest of these characters, apart from our general audience responsibility to care about characters in these sorts of things. Other than that, the reason we have to care about them is because the Doctor remembers these obituaries and is telling us that they are important characters. And that is telling and not showing. That script should have come back from the editors with show don't tell written all over this script. We are told these people are amazing, we are not shown it, they are demonstrably fucking not great at their jobs, and the reason we are told is oh yeah, they'll be important. That's not how you should do it. Ideally, if you wanted us to actually think these people are important, we should have encountered people across various series of this show, or from the last series, where people talk about this incident and the history of the crew and how amazing they are and how weird it is that they all got murdered or whatever. Oh yeah, they all die in a nuclear explosion. The thing is, I also don't think that would work. But it wouldn't work because we are too used to Russell T Davies just dropping in occasional hints of stuff and going, that'll come up later. If he started dropping hints about the colony on Waters of Mars, then everyone would be onto it immediately. But that is the way to make us care about these people, and to have them be, for it to be viable, for it to be understandable, for it to make sense that these guys are actually really important in Earth's history. Because as it is, I've never heard of any of these fucking people. I've never heard of this base on Mars, and it might get mentioned offhandedly previously, or might get referred to again later. But for me, I've watched almost all of Russell T Davies' run at this point, and I know nothing about these people going in, or the base, or the project, or why they die. So to me as an audience member, nothing that is happening is in any way significant, and the only reason I have to think that it is actually significant is the Doctor keeps telling us. It's really a great example of why companions are really important, because you have the Doctor telling the companion these people are really important, and you have the companion grounding the episode in the emotions of, oh no, these people are dying, that's bad. So that's problem number one. Problem number 2 is the monster effects look very bad. It's a guy with some water dribbling out of his mouth. And it's just a guy running. And these water monsters can get through like really heavily sealed doors. Why? Because water always finds a way. It's like that's 100% of the explanation. Like, okay, like fine, but that effect looked so bad, guys. He's just pointing his hand, and it's just a super soaker or like a pressure washer. Like, this is mostly the fault of the writers. Like, they should know there's no way to not have that look extremely goofy. But like, yeah, it just looks bad, guys. It just looks bad. And like, I've been talking in the last video. There was someone going on, oh, it's a BBC show with a BBC budget. What did you expect? I really don't like that criticism, because Doctor Who has had many, many, many good, convincing visual effects throughout its run, and many crap ones. And it can do a lot of impressive stuff with a relatively low budget, right? Yes, the budget can be an excuse, but when you have an effect like that, we can't just go, oh, with a proper budget, it would have looked amazing. I'm pretty sure if you had a Marvel budget, that still would have looked shit. So we can go with budgets and things. Ultimately, we don't know how the budget was broken down. We know the budget was relatively low. By the standards of UK filmmaking, the budget's really quite high. But by the standards of the world, like a single Doctor Who budget would have filmed, like if we look at a contemporary show, you could film an entire episode of Doctor Who for probably about 10 minutes of the average Battlestar Galactica episode. So like it is low budget, but I don't think low budget is an excuse, because you should be writing for the budget you have, not the budget you hope you have. And Doctor Who is historically very good at doing a lot with very little. And that does not involve just... It really looks bad, guys. Okay. So that's problem number 2. Problem number 3, there's no real story to it. The story is some people on Mars get infected by this virus, and one by one they die until the captain hits the nuclear explosion. But the doctor rescues some people at the end, okay? And then, because the doctor's got hubris or something, and then the captain was like, oh, you fucked history. And the doctor's like, whatever, Trevor. And so she kills herself to maintain history. That's 100% of the story. And so, like, because there's really not a whole lot going on, so it's really relying on you getting really into the drama of, oh, these people are all going to die, which puts a lot of weight on the fixed point in time thing. The captain dying in this disaster is so important that, like, a Dalek leaves her alive during the last episode, during, oh god, the Stolen Earth, which, fine, I suppose. But, so the Doctor, at the end, brings 3 people back home with him. And they were like, oh shit, great. And where is it? Okay, well, I'll fucking talk about this bit as we're here. And I'll have to fucking chop it up. Anyway, so, like...
Reunion.
But I'm supposed to be dead.
Not anymore.
But... Susie... My granddaughter... The person she's supposed to become... might never exist now.
Nah. Captain had leg to inspire her face to face. Different details, but the story's the same.
Now, the problem with the fixed point in time thing is the Doctor there is saying things which are quite likely. And I had a look at the review section for Waters of Mars. It won a Hugo Award. That made me respect the Hugos quite a lot less. But someone mentioned in the reviews, like, the concept of a fixed point in time is real fucking woolly. Because this entire episode hinges on, it's really important that the Doctor doesn't fuck with time, and it's supposed to be this massive act of hubris that he does. I was like, how exactly is this different from or everything else that he does. And yeah, it's an important historical event, fine, but it's an important historical event we've never heard of before and never will again. And it is a bit great man theory of history, which I don't like at all, because great man theory of history is absolute bullshit. It's really important that this one particular person does this one particular thing at this one particular time. Generally speaking, a lot of that is just sort of valorizing individualist bullshit, which Doctor Who is supposed to be better than. It's not under Russell's tenure, anyway.
Know that. And if my family changes, the whole of history could change. The future of the human race. No one should have that much power.
Tough.
That I find interesting. No one should have that much power. Tough. Those two lines don't fit. Tough is not a response to the line, no one should have that much power.
And if my family
I don't want to come across like a conspiracy theorist, but I'm pretty sure
the
that
whole
was a
of
reach.
history could change.
I'm pretty sure they went
The
back
future
and
of the
changed
human
what
race.
Blondie's
No one
line
should have
was,
that
because
much
that
power.
exchange doesn't make any fucking sense. It's just like, oh, this man's hubris. Rrr.
You should have left us there.
I've done this sort of thing before. In small ways, say some little people.
Okay, so the Doctor is supposed to be being hubris, and this is bad, that he's interfered with time. He's showing real hubris, that he's interfered with time in this one particular way. And he just said, oh, I've done it before, I've saved some little people. That is the actual horrible thing he's saying. Oh, I've saved little people, they didn't matter. And isn't it a far cry from Matt Smith's first Christmas special, where he said, oh, that's remarkable. In all these years in time and space, I'd never come across anyone who wasn't important. God, Russell T Davies just continues to find ways to disappoint me in terms of his ethics.
But never someone as important as you. Oh, I'm good.
Little people? What, like Mia and Yuri? Who decides they're so unimportant? You?
For a long time now, I thought I was just a survivor, but I'm not. I'm the winner. That's who I am.
Okay. So the other problem with this thing that the Doctor's supposed to be doing is this character arc he's been on for this episode doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, it needed to be built up to. Because as it is, it's just a bit of a character 180. And you could say that this is a response to Donna's, like how it ended with Donna. And that might make sense if what happened to Donna was not unbelievably fucked up for all sorts of different reasons. And like, the Doctor did a really, really fucking terrible thing. And to send him on a self-destructive spiral about it, making it all about his pain rather than Donna's, that's kind of fucked up. Also, this didn't directly follow on from The Stolen Earth and the other one after that. What followed on from those was the next Doctor and the Easter one, Planet of the Dead or whatever. So, like, during which the Doctor was noticeably kind of fine about the whole Donna thing, like he was a bit sad. But, So this whole, oh, I'm a winner now, I'm going to do all the hubris and I'm going to stray too far, fly too close to the sun thing, like it kind of just comes out of nowhere. It wasn't built up to. This is to be compared with the whole Death of the Doctor arc that Steven Moffatt did, which had been built up to for the entire of Series 5 and then came to a head during A Good Man Goes to War. And then the rest of Series 6 was sort of dealing with, oh shit, the Doctor is he's too big and he really needs to take a step back and be like, he is causing problems by doing the things he's doing. Whereas Waters of Mars, it just wants to do it in one episode. Like, nah. I mean, to be fair, Ten's character is so inconsistent that it actually does kind of work, but it's still bad. Like, the inconsistent writing is very much not a good defense that you should be relying on. Oh yeah, I remember.
Time Lord Victorious.
Time Lord Victorious.
And there's no one to stop you.
No.
This is wrong, Doctor. I don't care who you are. The Time Lord Victorious is wrong.
That's for me to decide. Now you'd better get home. Oh, it's all locked up. You've been away. Still, That's easy. All yours.
The performances are good.
Is there nothing you can't do?
Not anymore.
And she goes in and kills herself. And I'm not particularly happy that Doctor Who continues to use suicide as a way of getting out of corners it's written itself into. I don't like that it has done Dalek and then this. Suicide is a pretty serious fucking problem, and I wouldn't go so far as to say Dalek and Waters of Mars treat it lightly, but I'm not sure about it as a way of getting yourself out of plot contrivances. It doesn't even work on it. It doesn't work on its own, by its own standards, because instead of dying on the Mars colony in a nuclear explosion, she killed herself in her own house. Her death doesn't actually do the thing the episode is pretending it does. History is still changed, so she wasn't actually doing anything there. The show sort of knows this, but it also really demonstrates that the fixed point in time thing doesn't actually matter or work, because clearly things are a lot more robust than the Doctor initially seemed to think they are, because apparently you can just change things and it doesn't really matter. Like, the difference between her dying in a nuclear explosion on Mars versus shooting herself in her own house, like, that's a pretty big difference, is never remarked upon after this episode. This episode knows that nothing it's actually doing matters, and it's just telling the audience again and again and again that it does, and it's just bad. Dun dun dun. And they changed it to from died on Mars to died on Earth. I was like, that's burying the lead a bit. And so those two survived the fixed point in time. So it doesn't fucking, like... The whole episode is like the Doctor going, oh no, I can't change anything with this. And he changes things, and that's supposed to be this really bad thing that he's doing. Because, he's playing God with time and whatever. And the episode doesn't tell you why specifically it's... Well, no. And in the episode tells us that the difference between this episode and all the other ones where he saves people is this is such an important moment in time, we shouldn't fuck with it. And, like, he fucks with it in a bunch of ways. But then nothing happens as a result, apart from those two survive, and the captain kills herself in her house rather than dying in a nuclear explosion on Mars. And, like... Okay, if you want to make an episode about, like, the consequences of fucking with time, you have to actually have some consequences. Because I don't think anything from this comes back, apart from the Doctor being sad or whatever. It's just really weird, because the show keeps going, there's consequences, and there aren't any. The one consequence is the captain kills herself, which apparently she didn't need to do. Oh, man, anyway, I think we're done. I think that's it. Yeah, like, oh, God, and he's sad in the TARDIS at the end. So, Russell T Davies has written some bullshit, but usually his grasp of writing fundamentals is better than this. Even, like, it wasn't in the Series 2 finales, but generally speaking... He is not a terrible writer. He has some terrible ethics with regards to pacifism and some other bits and pieces, but like, generally speaking, as a writer, he knows what he's doing. But this episode really breaks some fundamental, like, rules of writing. One of them being show, don't tell, and the other one is if you're writing a thing about consequences, there have to actually be some consequences. And the writing law of show, don't tell is actually a lot more complicated than a lot of people present it as. It is an idea that has its roots in modernist writing. So modernism is like early 20th century, is more or less gone by the 1960s. But a lot of the ideas from modernism are stuck about, one of which is show don't tell, one of which is exposition is bad, right? the idea of show don't tell and the idea of exposition being bad, they're not wrong. I would go so far as to say that, like, those are fundamentally quite good ideas, but they're not always right. So you could defend times when art tells but doesn't show, but I really don't think this is one of those times. Fuck me, it's bad. And, like, okay, so, like, we finished Waters of Mars, and at its core, the entire thing just doesn't work. It doesn't particularly work as body horror. It barely has a story. It undermines its own theme. And it can't seem to keep a fucking tone. So, like, this guy is supposed to be controlling this robot with the gloves, and the Doctor reverses it. So he's in control of the robot, which means the robot is controlling this person's gloves. And, like, they just keep cutting back to the other guy going, he's controlling me. It's just bad. Oh dear. Oh God. Yeah. No, it's... So, again, I'm really interested in the difference between a varied tone and an inconsistent tone. I don't want to get into that. Okay. So, on my notes, I've got, how do I feel about my rewatching Doctor Who project? Overall, sad, mostly. Drained. Like, I'm not going to watch the fucking two-parter finale thing. Just because Russell T Davies has proved again and again that it's gonna be bad. There is no way it's better than I remember. Just because I remember, like, every problem of Russell's writing that I've talked about up to this point, I remember it just hitting those marks again and again and again and again. I just, like, life is too short for me to waste my time on terrible art. And it just makes me sad because when Doctor Who is amazing, it can be so amazing. But when it's bad, it's just, oh God, why are you doing any of this? It just makes me feel drained and sad and empty. So, you know, how do I feel about rewatching Russell T Davies' tenure as Doctor Who? Bad. Like, series 1 was way better than I remembered. That was nice. And then, oh God, like, a lot of it was better than I remembered, but it ends on these just terrible fucking notes. The finale of series 4, and then this. Like, I can really see why my memory of Doctor Who was worse than it actually was, because it ends on just some of the worst episodes I've ever seen of Doctor Who. Damn. Is Waters of Mars and the series 4 finale worse than Chris Chibnall's episodes? Maybe. I don't know. Nothing in Chris Chibnall's episodes worked, whereas there were usually elements of, in Waters of Mars and in Stolen Earth and so on, the performances were pretty good. Some people like the performances in Chris Chibnall's Doctor Who. I don't, but that's not the fault of the actors. It's the fact that they don't, no one in Chibnall's Doctor Who actually had a fucking character. So the performances couldn't be good because they have nothing to work with. So, like, yeah, I suppose Waters of Mars and Stolen Earth and so on are better than Chris Chibnall's Doctor Who, but it's fucking close, man. Man, given how much I hate these episodes, it's really impressive how, like, yeah, these episodes were terrible and I hate the politics so much and I think they make the world worse, but at least it's not Chris Chibnall's Doctor Who. Okay, so this leads me on to a subject I'm not going to go on about, but I do think it's quite interesting. Like, let's go ahead and throw me back in time, me and my spouse, because I need my spouse. Not just because I love Jen, but also because, like, Jen is a really fundamental partner that I have in terms of, like, creativity. Like, a lot of my best ideas are only, like, a lot of my best work is only as good as it is because Jen helped me. So, like, me and Jen get thrown back in time directly after, so we take over from Steven Moffatt instead of Chris Chibnall. The world is immediately better. Anyway, so Jen and I get put in charge of Doctor Who, right? Here is how I would run Doctor Who. Step 1. Cast the Doctor and 1 to 2 companions. Very first thing. I haven't written anything yet. So actually, no. Because you can't cast someone if you don't have an idea, right? So the first thing you need to do is decide on a theme. Right? So this is not a very common way of writing, but I heard it from, I think, a screenwriting YouTube channel, and I really like it. And it's how I do everything now, because I think it works really well. It's like, when you set out to write anything, the advice is decide on your theme, and then when you make decisions going forward, you're like, okay, what expresses that theme the best? What if there are 2 options that I'm deciding between, like whether to make the book about a hunter who goes into the underworld, or whether the hunter should go up into the sky and fight angels, which one best expresses the theme, right? So you decide on a theme. You cast the Doctor and 1 to 2 companions based on what that theme is. And then, so you have the Doctor and the companions, and they are working with you on a 3-year contract. And the idea is that they can, actually it should probably be 4 years, but it doesn't matter. They can go off and do other things during this initial part of the process. You've cast them, and they're locked in, but they're not going to be needed for about 6 months. So you put out an open call for script pitches to all screenwriting agencies. You don't want to make a completely open submission process, because you would just get deluged with scripts. You need to do some QC, I get that. So any writers from any screenwriting agency can submit a pitch document, and the pitch has to be like an episode that is in some way about that theme. In my opinion, a cool theme could be, when I thought about how I would do this, I have 2 themes. A problem that only pacifism can overcome, and a problem that pacifism can't overcome. So writers could submit pitches to my team / the BBC based on either of those ideas, right? So you've got a load of pitches. You pick the best 20, and they send in a script that they have previously written, so you can check that they actually know what they're fucking doing. Okay, so you have 20 writers now. Okay, so the reason I've done all this up to this point is when Russell T Davies left, there was only one person who could have taken over, Steven Moffatt, because I assume Paul Cornell was too busy. He's the only other person who's written really amazing episodes consistently. And when Steven Moffatt left, the only person to take over was Chris Chibnall, because I suspect it's a culture problem at the BBC, that they do not foster talent. Like when my spouse and I were working for the BBC, they had a thing called the BBC Writers' Room. I don't know if it's still going. And the idea is the public could send in like unsolicited scripts, and if they were good, they'd get made. No, I think it's been shut down. Yeah, it got shut down a ways back. Yeah, which is probably smart, because we knew someone who worked in the writer's room, and they said, yeah, no script had ever been actually made after it was submitted to the writer's room in the time she'd been working there. And I don't know how long that was, but it was a fair chunk of time. So anyway, we've got all the writers in a writer's room, right? We then go through the various pitches, and we finesse everything. This is the point where we get the cast back. So we get the Doctor back, we get the companions back. This is where we start finessing the Doctor's character. What aspects of the Doctor do we want to explore? What gets the actors excited? What gets the writers excited? We have a big old swirl of ideas. And then we start trying to nail down the core personality traits of the Doctor and the companions and how they intersect with that theme, right? And then we get to the actual writing stage. Now, the Doctor and the companion actors can sort of float in and out at this stage. It's nice to have them involved, because it means that the performances are growing and changing, and they would also have valuable insight to go, hang on, no, that doesn't quite work. But the BBC would tell us how many episodes we're doing. I think Chris Chibnall did 10. So we find the best 10 scripts, and we allocate writers to them. Usually it'll be 1 writer, but it may be 2. Which a lot of the writers in the room, probably about half or just under half, a lot of the writers wouldn't get to write a script. They'd still be there, and the idea is that we would possibly use them in the next round, or like they still get paid and they're still part of the creative team, but they don't get script, which, you know, is fucking sad. But, like, the point is to have more scripts than we know what to do with, not to be scrambling around going, oh shit, we've got nothing to do for episode 7. Quick, let's hit up one of Russell T Davies's or Steven Moffat's friends, which is the only reason why Mark Gatiss kept given scripts, because most of Mark Gatiss's scripts were bad. Anyway, that's when we get the scripts, right? So, with everything written and in place, then we start filming, right? We film it, we edit it, the rest of that goes as normal. And then we restart the process. So we gather a lot of feedback from how the episodes were received. We decide what we want to take on board and what we don't want to take on board. And then we put out a new call for open pitches, which we might not need to do. If we think that the process worked so well in the previous round that we can just carry on into the next round, then we don't have to do the open pitch thing again. But we do need to keep the Doctor and the companion actors in the loop and, like, engaged in the creative process to, like, really nail down what we are doing moving into the future. Let me be very clear. This idea would never happen because it costs too much money. You're talking about casting a Doctor and 1 to 2 actors and having them kind of on retainer, not doing any actual acting work for a large period of time. And you're talking about hiring a large number of writers, most of which won't, like, go on to have an actual script be made in the episode. Like, if The Sun found out about if Jen and I did this actual process and The Sun found out about it, they would fucking scream about the amount of waste that was happening. But I also think that it is the way to make a really good show because you actually have to take the time to do it, as we learned from Series 2 when Russell T Davies's attention was split and all his scripts were shit as a result. And you also, like, have the Doctor and the companions, like, really involved in the process so they can shape the way things go. I think this is the best way to make really great art. And it is completely unsurprising to me that there's no way capitalism would let it happen. So that's how I do it. It has 2 advantages. One is that you have the time to actually get the writing correct, and then you can move on. And it means you are actually getting new blood into the writer's room. You're setting yourself up well for the future, because you're constantly bringing in new writers who are, in theory, top of their game, because you're letting agented writers submit. And I should say, it hurts me a bit to do that because I don't have a literary agent. I've tried a bunch of times and done work. And a lot of the times I've tried, my writing was not good enough to justify me getting a literary agent. So this isn't me going, I'm really hard done by, like, the mainstream fiction industry has frozen me out, man. No, like, my writing for a long time was actually kind of bad. I think it's different now, but I thought that before. Anyway. So yeah, like, this is the way you actually prepare for the future, rather than leave the show in Chris Chibnall's hands, and then we get back Russell T Davies, who clearly doesn't actually have a whole lot that he wants to do with the show, other than unfuck a few of his older decisions, like undoing the mind wipe of Donna. Hi, I've taken so long to edit the last video that I have had new ideas since then, so I'm going to record this and splice the 2 videos together, because... So, whilst walking my dog, I had a cool idea. And that idea is, how could we take moments in the show that I hate and make them... How would I fix them? I was going to say make them better, but that's wrong. That implies, like, a linear, objective scale of quality. So just how would I fix them, right? So let's take The Doctor's Daughter. In The Doctor's Daughter, like, fully nothing works. And it's partly been in my mind because in the final episode of Series 4, Davros is like, how many people have died in your name? And I said Jenny didn't die in his name. She was a soldier. She just did a soldier thing. And I was actually kind of wrong about that, because Jenny didn't die as a soldier. She died as a pacifist. She leapt in front of a bullet to save the Doctor when she wouldn't have done that necessarily if she was a soldier. If she was a soldier, she would have shot the leader, right? So actually, Jenny is the strongest example of what Davros means. Like, the Doctor is taking someone else, in this case Jenny, and she is taking the consequences of his pacifism onto herself, right? So actually, that makes sense. I will give Davros exactly one example that's definitely true, some which are maybe okay. One of my lovely commenters, Insane Doctor Who Theories, I think their name is, pointed out that I missed the head of the house from the werewolf episode, who I didn't recognise when those examples were happening. I'm getting distracted. My point is, there's the bit at the end of The Doctor's Daughter is Jenny sacrifices herself for the Doctor, right? And that by itself is fine, but what the episode then follows it up with is this bit where the Doctor grabs a gun and points it at the head of the human general or whatever. He's going, and we're supposed to genuinely think that maybe he is gonna shoot the general, and it's a hollow moment because of course he's not. And that, of course he's not, is actually kind of an interesting idea. So, like, I'm sure for the younger audience members, they might be going, oh my god, is the Doctor gonna shoot him? But anyone who has, like, any knowledge of how stories work knows that it's kind of a hollow attempt. And part of the reason for this is Jenny has only been alive for about 40 minutes, and the Doctor's only liked her for about 20. So that's at least partly why him grabbing a gun and, like, apparently being moments away from pulling the trigger is quite so hollow. It's like this relationship is entirely surface driven, and it's based on genetics, which is just kind of just like, the idea is she's his daughter, so of course he's, like, really attached to her, so of course he might break his, like, centuries-long pacifist oath, right? And for all my pacifist discourse, I don't think any pacifist would execute the enemy general in that instance. I mean, the moment doesn't work because it's a house built on sand, and it also doesn't work because of story structure. So Jenny is clearly, like, someone who's there for that episode and that episode alone. If she dies at the end, like, that's not really a big deal. And that's just kind of how guest stars work. Guest stars are there to do a few things, one of them is die. So, how would I fix this? If the order came down to have this moment, and have it play out more or less exactly like this, and end with the I never would, you got that, I never would. The episode thinks that the Doctor would never do it. The episode knows that it is lying to you with that moment, because the Doctor says, I never would. Okay, anyway, how would I fix it? If the order came down to do that exact sequence, here are the steps. First, make it Susan rather than Jenny. Susan as in the Doctor's actual granddaughter. And the reason I would make it Susan is there is a pre-existing relationship the Doctor has with her, and, like, he genuinely already cares for her. So, I mean, that's a good start, right? In some ways, this moment is, like, the most significant thing that could ever possibly happen to the Doctor. Like, there's a reason the War Doctor works, right? It's the Doctor becoming much more of a conditional pacifist. So this moment, especially in the Tennant arc, where the only pacifism that's presented is absolute pacifism, for this to work, he has to, like, this is the most significant moment of the Doctor's life. He has come very, very close to breaking this absolute pacifism that he's stuck to again and again and again throughout the RTD run. And so, you cannot have the most significant moment to happen to the Doctor in the entire RTD run to be based on a guest star. So, that the Doctor has known for 40 minutes and liked for 20, right? So make it Susan. That's step one. Step two is have her be an actual companion. You know how in the first series, Adam, the companion, really worked because he was brought on board and he was there, and then he fucked up in the episode and then got kicked off at the end of the episode. Like, there is no reason to think that he was being brought on board as a fake-out companion. That plot move really worked. So in order to have this moment work, the show, the audience, and the Doctor need to treat Jenny/Susan as a really significant character. So, I would begin Series 4, and then around, let's say, Doctor's Daughter is episode 6. Around episode 2 or 3, I would bring Jenny/Susan into the TARDIS, and I would have her be a full companion along with Donna. And she would be a full companion for episodes 3, 4, 5, and 6. And she would die at the end of 6. Everything else can play out in exactly the same way, apart from the fucking clone stuff, but that never worked anyway. Just kind of nonsense. In some pitch meeting somewhere, someone pitched to Russ the Doctor's daughter, and Russ went, yes, cool, I want to have that episode in my life. And then just he gave it to the writer of this episode who didn't know what the fuck they were doing, so they did the clone stuff. The clone stuff is irrelevant. We don't need the clone stuff. The cool thing about the clone stuff is this idea that the war has been going for a very short period of time, just really intensely, with masses of death. Make it 6 months rather than 7 days, because 7 days is just not a very good amount of time, and it sort of goes, it doesn't work. 6 months. But yes, that change, have Jenny/Susan be around for 3 or 4 episodes, is at the same time an absolutely massive change, but it's also kind of small. But it really, for me, communicates why moments like this don't really work when they're only done on a single episode foundation. Because the Doctor has lived for 800 years, I think, at this point, and he's seen so many people live and so many people die, and when people die, it is always a tragedy, right? That's one of the nice things about Doctor Who. He's rarely jaded, and when he is, sometimes, because Peter Capaldi, you could say, is sort of jaded, it's much more complicated than that, but they can do some really interesting things with that. Like Peter Capaldi's whole arc is learning to reconnect with himself and the world around him. But if you want a really significant moment at the end of an episode, it has to have roots in significance, by which I mean the same thing of you can't build a really important moment on sand. You have to have it have a really good foundation, otherwise it just will sort of flop, which is what happened here. The second one is the moment in this show that I have complained about so much at this point, the Dalek saying you would make a great Dalek in the episode Dalek. Now, so technically speaking, if you look at the episode Dalek by itself, the you would make a good Dalek thing is not actually necessarily terrible, because we start off by seeing the Dalek be tortured, and so our sympathy is naturally on the Dalek's side, sort of. That is shaken by anyone who actually knows anything about the Daleks, who has seen them before and knows the sort of thing they get up to. And it is also shaken by the finale of series 1, where the Daleks are just absolute bloodthirsty fascist monsters, right? So Dalek by itself sort of works. And by sort of works, there are just so many asterisks there, because it sort of works, asterisk, if you don't know anything about the Daleks, asterisks if you ignore what Russ would go on to do with the Daleks in the finale and then everything afterward. Asterisk if Russ then hadn't gone on to go and do that exact moment a bunch of times later, make this bullshit moral equivalence thing. Because I was going to say, if they had made a new enemy for the Doctor, then it might work. But no, the moment only works if the Doctor is immediately and automatically hateful towards the Dalek. But he's not actually, because he doesn't torture the Dalek, he tries to kill it, and then he yells at it and calls the Dalek a murderous bastard, which, considering how many deaths the Dalek caused, I think it's probably fair. So he's not actually showing hate, he's showing anger. And anger, contrary to what a lot of Western civilization thinks, if you have ever had any therapy, you would know that anger is not actually a bad emotion. Anger is an emotion, and we need to be able to express it in a way that doesn't hurt people. And you know what the Doctor wasn't doing? Hurting anyone. He was just yelling at a creature that has killed lots of people. So how would I fix that you would make a great Dalek thing? Well, if the order came down to have that exact thing in there, I would have the Doctor actually act like a Dalek. Not necessarily flip out and start killing people, but break all his rules. Have the Dalek be much less vulnerable. Have it still be captured, but have the Doctor immediately flip out. Yes, have him torture the Dalek. Have him try to kill the Dalek. Have him do a bunch of things, including getting people killed. Like getting the soldiers killed. He could like shut down and be really callous and go, okay, those 3 soldiers there, if I close the bulkhead before they can get out of the complex, then I can lure this Dalek into a trap, right? So he is actually doing some really fucked up Dalek shit. If he is doing some bad stuff, like really bad stuff, then the moment works. Because we have seen the Doctor be cold, callous, murderous, and not fashy, because the Doctor is not a fascist. You cannot have a pacifist fascist. Like, they are completely diametrically opposed viewpoints. But very much in the really dark side of utilitarianism, right? He could be starting to see these soldiers in the building, including Rose and including Adam and including Van Statten, as playing pieces. Like, if you could have the Doctor get really utilitarian and go, whatever I do in this underground complex doesn't matter. All that matters is I stop the Dalek from getting out of the complex. That means the soldiers in this complex, they're already dead. What I do doesn't matter to them. So I can use them as lures to try and bait the Dalek into a trap. And, like, they wouldn't necessarily have died if they hadn't done what I told them to do, right? That is the level of stuff you need to have the Doctor to do if you want that moment to work. And, by the way, I think that would have been a cool thing to do. Like, genuinely. I did not have that idea planned. Because my brain doesn't fucking work at the moment, I've really gone past the idea that I should, like, plan out what I'm going to say on these videos. It's really interesting to see the difference between my Dalek video, which is the first one in this series, I suppose, ignoring the Doctor Who thing I did with Eleanor way back, and now where I sat down knowing I wanted to talk about Doctor's daughter and Dalek, and that was it. And so, like, I think it could have been really cool if you were going to do that. If you want to have the episode about the Doctor's rage and anger bubbling up when presented with this symbol of fascism and everything that nearly burned the universe, and to have him come really close to losing himself, and it's Rose who brought it back, you have to actually have the Doctor, like, go that distance. You can't just say he's gone that distance and go, haha. I say you can't. They did, and plenty of people, like, accept it, so fine. Maybe there isn't actually a problem with the episode, and I just think there is. But I really don't want to bring everything back to autism. But the thing about the autism thing is, like, if you say you would make a great Dalek, and the Doctor has not been acting like a Dalek, the moment can, like, fundamentally really doesn't work for me. And if you wanted to build the episode around that moment, that you would make a great Dalek moment, good Dalek, then you can. And there is a really interesting story you can do with it. It would have, in my opinion, been much better. But yeah, anyway. That's what I would do. That's what I would do with Dalek. And I say this partly because I think it's interesting to do thought experiments like this. How would I fix this thing that I really don't like? But it is also interesting because when you start thinking about fixing moments in the show that don't work for you, you start to realize how many story possibilities there are, especially if you're working under constraints. Because you can go, how would we get the Doctor to, like, nearly kill someone with this general guy? And you can think about that fine. I mean, whatever works for you in terms of, like, hypotheticals. But I found it really useful to go, okay, I have to keep this moment exactly the same. How can we get there? Anyway, that's cool. What was my other thing? I've got one super quick thing. So this video, Whoculture is this YouTube channel, and every once in a while I find myself on one of their episodes for some reason. I don't particularly like them, but it is what it is. Anyway, this is 10 Doctor Who mysteries that have the worst possible answers, and it's kind of a shitty list. Like, they always fucking are. So this is about the episode The God Complex, where every room in this evil hotel is supposed to have the thing that you fear the most behind it. And so the Doctor approaches door number 11, and you don't see what is inside it. Whoculture, this is the analysis Whoculture did.
The occupant of room 11 was revealed 2 years later in the 11th Doctor's final story, The Time of the Doctor. And it wasn't what anyone was expecting. Inside the Doctor's room was a crack in time and space. It's revealed that so clearly was not the original intention that it just doesn't land as authentic. In fact, it's glaringly obvious that there was no original intention. Clearly, Moffat thought he could just make something up later.
The problem with that is, Steven Moffatt didn't write The God Complex. The God Complex was written by Toby Whithouse. And this is why, for me, particularly, I really struggle with internet discourse about Doctor Who and Steven Moffatt, is because it's really fucking trendy to just throw shit at Steven Moffatt, even when he has nothing to do with it. He didn't write that episode, so why are you putting it on him? There are just so many reasons you could go after Steven Moffatt. You don't have to make them up. I have been watching Series 5 of Doctor Who with my 10-year-old niece because I want to indoctrinate her in the correct way. I want her to like the good Doctor Who series. I could start her with Series 1, but then the natural way forward would be to follow that on with Series 2. And I don't hate my niece, so I'm not going to do that. So we started watching Series 5, and she got on really well with episode 1 to 3. She bailed on the Weeping Angels episode, which I was really proud of her for. She said when Amy gets trapped in the command bunker thing with the Weeping Angel on the tape, she was like, okay, I'm out. Tap. And yeah, I felt really happy that she was confident enough to do that and like take care of her own emotions. Go, actually, yeah, you know what, this is bad. Because I had primed her. But yeah, so that's cool. So we then watched Vampires in Venice. Now, Vampires in Venice, the reason I brought up this God complex thing is Vampires in Venice is also written by Toby Whithouse. Toby Whithouse actually has a really good list of credits, with the exception of A Town Called Mercy. I fucking hated A Town Called Mercy. I've never seen it again. I can't remember which one The Lie of the Land is, but the rest of Toby Whithouse's episodes are actually really good, so maybe I should rewatch it. I don't know. But the point is, so in Vampires in Venice, there were a few really interesting moments. So, there are these vampires. They're actually sort of fish monsters. And I didn't like this episode particularly when I watched it the first time, and I'm not sure if I've ever actually tried to rewatch it. So I was quite surprised when I rewatched it with my niece a few days back, and I really liked it. There are a few problems, which we'll get to, but generally speaking, it was super cool. And I have two moments I particularly want to draw your attention to. The lass here is the head of the fish aliens, been luring humans into this place in Venice, and they have been turning them into fish aliens so they can repopulate their species, because their species was almost wiped out by the cracks in time. They have a shitload of males, but really not that many like women, female fish people. So they're trying to recreate that so they can actually do that. But the problem is the males are sort of feral. So she just fed someone who was in the process of being converted to the males, and the males ate her, right? A thing that I don't like about this episode, by the way, is so the lass who got fed to the males is the one on the left here. I'm not a fan that there are two black characters in this, and both of them die. They both sacrifice themselves for the white characters. It's not great. Anyway, well, what was I? So yeah, the matriarch comes back and she chats to the doctor. He finds out that she and the remainder of her species, which is her and like 20,000 males, like fled, and that they're all that remains. And so there's this moment of connection. It's cool.
I'll make you a deal. An answer for an answer.
I love the trading questions thing. It doesn't happen that often in media, but I love it every time it happens. It happened in the Terry Pratchett book Thud. It was amazing. I do it in my own work because I just love it so much. I think it's such a cool way to create interesting character drama.
You're using a perception filter. It doesn't change your features, but manipulates the brainwaves of the person looking at you.
For cracks? And through others we saw silence. And the end of all things. We fled to an ocean like ours. And the crack snapped shut behind us.
So it really helps that the person they got to play this lass is real fucking good. She is in pain. She is not having a good time. And the doctor, we can all sympathize.
Saturnine was lost.
So Earth is to become Saturnine Mark II.
And you can help me. We can build a new society here as others have.
So, at this point, I'm going, well, clearly she's talking about, like, replacing Venice, which will involve killing everyone in Venice. So that's clearly not going to fucking work, is it? But the Doctor could take her and the species to an empty ocean planet and make a start again there. That's what I was thinking watching this. And those who have been watching for a little while will, like, probably have noticed that that is basically what I wanted from Boomtown. Like, them to talk about other options for what's happening. That's not where the show goes.
What'd she say?
Where's Isabella?
Isabella?
The girl who saved my friend.
Oh, deserters must be executed. Any general will tell you that. I need an answer, Doctor. A partnership. Any which way you choose.
I don't think that's such a good idea, do you? I'm a Time Lord. You're a big fish. Think of the children.
Carlo! You were right. We're nothing alike. I will bend the heavens to save my race, while you philosophize.
Sends today. I will tear down the house of Calvieri stone by stone. Take your hands off me, Carlo. You know why? You didn't know Isabella's name. You didn't know Isabella's name.
Fucking chills. Everything is working so well in that scene. Matt Smith's performance is amazing. The lass who's the general of the fish people, she's really great. Murray Gold's music is so good, it's so tense. You'll notice they didn't bring up the third option that I wanted. However, I still really like it. And I like it because the Doctor asks about Isabella. Isabella's the black lass that died, or got murdered. And then you didn't know Isabella's name, right? So the Doctor may or may not have thought of a third option, right? Because let's consider the options. He might have gone, I can take these people somewhere else, so let me decide if that's a good idea. What problem will I be creating if I let these people settle on a new ocean planet? Or he might not have thought of that. And if he didn't think of that, we can assume that he was mostly going, where's Isabella? What have these people done? I am entirely focused on that. Because the ultimate reason he gives for going to war with the fish people is that she didn't know Isabella's name. And that tells him and the audience so much about the General, because the General, throughout that exchange, was being very sympathetic, very expansionist and murderous, don't get me wrong, but we can absolutely see where she's coming from. She is trying to preserve her species. And so, why is this different from Boomtown? Well, partly, Blom in Boomtown was just like trying to preserve her own skin. There was nothing greater behind her actions, right? Whereas the General in this is trying to preserve her species. And, like, ultimately, Blonde could have done a whole load of things in order to try and get off Earth. And she decided to try and blow up the planet twice, right? And, like, the General of the fish people in this, she's not trying to blow up the planet. She's just trying to murder everyone in Venice, right? So if we put the General of the fish people next to Blom, not only is the General of the fish people, her mission is much more virtuous because she is trying to save her species, she also is being much less murderous. And I really do hope that communicates quite why I am so fucked off with Boomtown. It's because, like, Russell seems to be trying to create the most morally uncomplicated, awful bastard in Blom, and then, like, really pretend that she isn't. Right. Okay. I do not mind that in that scene, the third option of we could take you somewhere that isn't Venice wasn't brought up, because the Doctor is being very in character with that reaction. We don't know what the Doctor thought, but we know that the Doctor was considering Isabella specifically. And that means that the Doctor is really focused on the lives of ordinary people around him. Which, if anything, the Doctor was really not doing in Boomtown. Boomtown was very much about torturing the Doctor and the companions for wanting to take Blom back to Raxacorico Falapatorius, where she could be executed, because she tried to murder everyone on Earth. Where was the Doctor very specifically didn't go, what about, hang on, let me just go outside and stop the first 5 people and go, hi, Steve, hi, Jane. What about their lives, Blom? What the fuck? Anyway, so you have no idea how much of a breath of fresh air it was to me to watch that scene and have this same quandary be presented to the Doctor. You've got this species which is nearly wiped out on the one hand, and you have the lives of everyone in Venice on the other. And that is a bullshit false dichotomy. There would have been other ways through it. But the Doctor isn't actually that concerned with the end game of the scenario. The Doctor is concerned about Isabella. What happened to her? What did you do? Who is this leader? How far will she go? Can I trust her? If anything, the Doctor is focused on a far bigger picture of the situation than I am, by going, there must be other ways of doing this, because the Doctor is actually trying to engage with the people around him and go, okay, what is the character of these people? Can I trust any of them? It's so good, man. It's really good. Okay, and at the end, right, bad shit's happened, everyone's dead, her plan's in ruins, so she's going to feed herself to the males, the feral males, right?
I can change time.
So, the Doctor's going, there are other ways this could happen. It's a bit late, but, he is trying to go, look, there is another way, because her plan stopped, so people of Venice are no longer under threat. This is a little bit like the Doctor trying to save Davros at the end of Series 4. The difference being, Davros is trying to wipe out all of reality apart from him and the Daleks for very poorly defined reasons. She was trying to wipe out Venice to save her species. Yes, she is very, very, very wrong. But that doesn't necessarily mean we can't understand where she was coming from. We shouldn't try to understand where Davros was coming from. He is an exterminationist monster. Don't try and save him. Fuck him. Whereas, you can try and save her. There is, even after she actively tries to wipe out all of Venice, rather than it being kind of a passive threat, there is something to be said for taking her and the rest of her species to an empty ocean planet and just go, see what you can do. Please don't make me regret this decision. I believe that's basically where the Doctor is coming from.
But you live. No, Rosanna, I did it.
Tell me, Doctor. Can your conscience carry the weight of another dead race? Remember us. Dream of us.
And she gets eaten by the males. That moment is also very superficially similar to, I name you Destroyer of Worlds, you did this. But there are a few key differences. Number 1, the text of the show doesn't think that the General of the Fish People has a fucking point, right? So the whole, you did this, I name you Destroyer of Worlds, you're a bastard, right? That was the thesis of the finale of episode 4. They spent 2 episodes building this whole, the Doctor has a secret army, the Doctor has children of time, the Doctor has taken all these people who were innocent people and turned them into warriors. That was the premise of Series 4. So I name you Destroyer of Worlds, you did this. That was the ultimate culmination of the thesis. That was the thesis stated in one phrase, right? Whereas the General of the Fish People saying, can you have another dead race on your conscience? That isn't the thesis of the episode. So that's thing number 1. The text of the episode hasn't been entirely building up to her saying that. The other thing is, she is in real serious pain. she is about to kill herself. And again, I'm not super happy with the amount of suicide there is in this episode, because Isabella's dad also kills himself in order to wipe out a bunch of not vampires. So, like, there is a lot of suicide, and I'm not super happy about that. But, you know, like, she's in real serious pain. And so what she is doing there is lashing out at the person who, like, basically just doomed her race, right? Or at least she thinks so. She is not drawing a broad philosophical point going, we are the same, you're just as bad as I am. Like, no, actually, not even Davros was saying you're not as bad as I am, because that implies a lot more thought behind his position. Like, Davros wasn't saying you're the same as the Daleks. The Davros is actually kind of saying you're worse than the Daleks. I name you Destroyer of Worlds. Because the Daleks at that point hadn't destroyed any worlds. Neither had the Doctor, but let's not try and put more weight on that stupid fucking sentence than it can bear, which is any weight at all. But in this moment, the fucking moment with fish people we're supposed to be talking about, like, let's listen to what she says again.
The weight of another dead race. Remember us. Dream of us.
We don't know exactly why she is saying a bunch of this. There are a few things it could be, and one of the things that sort of tickles me is she's basically trying to feel partly as if her lace will live on in the Doctor's memory. Maybe. But also, she is trying to instill a sense of consequence in him. She is basically telling the Doctor, in my opinion, this is a possibility, that you killed my race, you have to live with that, fuck you. And so, like, where you did this, I name you Destroyer of Worlds, can't bear any weight without immediately falling apart. There genuinely are a bunch of interesting connotations behind what the General of the Fish People is saying. Like, she could be saying a bunch of things, and I find the possibilities there interesting. There's one more reason I want to talk about Vampires of Venice specifically. It's because there is a lot of sectarianism between Russell T Davies fans and Moffat fans, right? Not least because a lot of the internet seems determined to, like, throw stones at Steven Moffatt for some reason. And I do not want to be a part of that. I really loved Series 1 of Doctor Who. I think it's really great. I don't hate Russell T Davies. A lot of his work is shit, but he has written some really amazing stuff. And he brought back Doctor Who, and I love him for that. I think Moffat's work is better, but I am not interested in using Moffat's good work to throw stones at Russell's shit work. I want us to look at Russell's work, good and bad, and go, isn't it interesting the differences between the good ones and the bad ones? I want us to look at Moffat's work and go, isn't it interesting the difference between the good ones and the bad ones? What works, what doesn't? But the key thing about Vampires in Venice, and why I was quite so happy to draw a parallel between this and fucking Boomtown and fucking Stolen Earth and all that bullshit, right? It's because Vampires of Venice was not written by Steven Moffatt. It was written by Toby Whithouse. Right? So it's really useful as a point of comparison to go, look, this is how you can do a confrontation between an episode antagonist and the Doctor, and have there be an actual, like, okay, you are not necessarily my enemy, you are trying to make yourself my enemy, but how can we get through this? Have an actual conversation like that, rather than just posture, have the episode puppeteer the characters into this posture, these grand ideas that, oh, if you take me to my execution, that makes you my executioners, like broad philosophical wank like that, as opposed to these two people talking as actual characters. Because that's the other thing about Blonde. Blonde doesn't exactly have a character in Boomtown. She has a philosophical foundation, which is, you're just as bad as me, and a few things that sort of leap out from that. Whereas the leader of the Fish People is much more of a character, because she has a position, she has people who rely on her, she has a clear, very clear objective. She has lines that she has crossed in terms of morality, but she is also not trying to wipe out the world, for example. They very specifically have her trying to rebuild her civilization in Venice. She might not kill everyone in Venice. We don't know. I assume she will, because it's Doctor Who. But they could have made her want to wipe out all of Earth, but they don't. They make it very specific, very local, because they want to have her as this character rather than a moustache-twirling villain. They'd have to give her a moustache first. Now, it's not a perfect episode, by any means. There are a couple of actual problems, which is why I think I didn't like it the first time. I'm going to mute this. So there's this fight scene between Rory and this guy who's the one male fish alien who's on land. And you can see he's got fangs.
The only thing I've seen uglier than you is your mum.
He's got mummy issues. It's not great, but whatever.
No. Did you just say something about mummy?
Did you see that dialogue? Very obvious ADR.
Did you just say something about mummy?
That's very obvious ADR. When you say mummy, your lips have to close twice. Mummy. And his mouth cannot close because he's got the fangs in. And this is what I mean by there are some problems. This scene feels wrong to watch because your man clearly can't close his mouth. So every time they have him speaking, it's all clear ADR, and that feels a little uncanny when we watch it. The actual sword fight isn't that bad. Bearing in mind, Doctor Who has a history of terrible sword fights. I've seen a few recently. This is far from the worst. I love Rory so much. Problem number 2 with this section is Rory is losing this sword fight, and your man is closing in on him. So he turns into a fish for some reason. And he explodes because Amy fires sunlight at him, right? And we have established in this episode that the not vampires are weak to sunlight, but we have never seen anything like the fish people exploding because they get hit by sunlight. That's never seen before or since, and we're never given a reason to think that that would happen. And both of these factors together imply some problems with the production. Because it's a fight between him and Rory and sort of Amy, I want to go ahead and say the second unit was probably doing this, whilst the first unit was off with the Doctor and the general of the fish people doing some of those scenes. And so, the production here is a bit ropey, which is a real shame, because when I watched it, that's why I came away with a negative impression of this episode, because, the way they deal with this guy, who is, the primary physical threat. The general is the philosophical threat because she's in charge, but he is the physical threat. He's the enforcer. And the way they deal with him is Amy shines sunlight at him and he explodes, which comes from nowhere, is never commented upon, and we're never given a reason to think that is what would happen if you shined light at vampires. Anyway, so I wanted to mention that partly because that's interesting, and when I watched these episodes initially, when I watched this, I really wasn't clear on why I didn't like it. I think I just came away with this generalized feeling of it was just kind of a bit crap. It wasn't. I genuinely think it was really good. I would put this next to The Long Game, so in the very good section, if I was still doing the tier list, which apparently I'm not. So yeah, I wanted to mention that as this isn't me just getting on my knees in front of Toby Whithouse and making him happy. I did want to bring up this other point. It's this episode really isn't perfect. It's got these interesting kind of production snafus. But generally, I think the script is pretty much perfect. And a perfect script doesn't exist, but it's real good, man. The last thing I want to talk about is therapy. Ages ago, I made a chatbot on ChatGPT that combines cognitive behavioural therapy and a few other bits and pieces with Doctor Who characters. I recorded a video of this ages ago, and I never posted it. But because of this whole journey I've been on, and the fact that people are actually watching it, I think people might actually be interested in this now. For reasons which will become clear, this video is rough, even by my recent standards. I love that you can see my dog's legs just poking out there. I've been dealing with some chronic fatigue stuff. Chronic fatigue is something I've struggled with for a long, long time. I had some therapy for it, which didn't go very well. And ages and ages ago, when I was really, really struggling and I hadn't really had any proper health interventions, I wrote to Matt Smith's agent. Matt Smith, who was at the time playing the Doctor from Doctor Who, the 11th Doctor. Now, I love Doctor Who. I don't love it as much now. Chris Chibnall's era was awful, and the current Russell T Davies stuff is fine. So I just have to accept that it's not the show I love anymore, and that's a bit sad. But ages and ages ago, I wrote to Matt Smith's agent going, "Hi, could Matt give me a fucking autograph or some shit?" And no one got back, because of course they didn't. It felt not great to do that because of, like, internalized nonsense. I felt childish. Anyway, recently I had the idea to get ChatGPT to talk to me as the 11th Doctor about this chronic fatigue stuff. Now, unless you've had a boatload of therapy, you shouldn't do this. ChatGPT is not therapy. It can't be therapy. It can help with some stuff, but you can't guarantee that it's going to be what you need. You have a better chance getting what you need out of an actual therapist. I have had many years of therapy, and ChatGPT didn't tell me anything that I didn't know, crucially. I knew all the stuff that ChatGPT then told me, but it was extremely validating to have this character that I have really fond memories of, that I'm really attached to, just tell me the things I need to hear. And if it was just that I got out of this experiment, it wouldn't necessarily be particularly interesting. But the thing that I got out of Dr. GPT, which I was surprised by, was it let me interrogate certain CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, a little bit more than I might have done otherwise. When I'm in therapy, my brain isn't necessarily working particularly well, and the good thing about ChatGPT is you put in a message, it replies, you don't have to reply to it immediately, you don't have to read the reply on the same day, you can engage at your own pace. Wouldn't it be wonderful if therapy worked the same way? And so I'm not a massive fan of cognitive behavioral therapy. It has its place. I've done a bunch of it. It helped me a load way back at the start of my journey, but these days, nah. So I was quite surprised to find it being quite so useful. So I got this chat that I made with ChatGPT, I don't know, and I ran the Doctor's bits through and I voice acted my bit, and I thought it might be interesting because people who have chronic fatigue might find it validating, and it's interesting from a point of view of AI and stuff, so, you know, enjoy. My issue is chronic fatigue. I've been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, although I'm not 100% sure it's a real thing. It strikes me as doctors giving a medical-sounding name to a collection of symptoms and high-fiving each other for a health breakthrough. Anyway, I've had these chronic fatigue problems since about 2012 in one way or another, meaning I haven't been able to work full-time in the last 10 years, and it's got better and worse over time. Mostly better, really. I've got diagnosed with ADHD, meaning I'm medicated now, which is nice, but yeah, it's tough. So, what I'm currently struggling with is, I was finishing up a creative project in August, and I'm pretty sure I burned myself out trying to get that thing finished. I was barely able to do anything in September. My wife and I just adopted a new dog from Battersea, and he's a lovely little guy, but walking him has just left me kind of unable to get out of bed the whole of Wednesday and today. Getting out of bed when I'm not walking the lad is difficult, and its whole thing is just boring and frustrating.
Chronic fatigue. Tricky one, that. Rather like trying to run the TARDIS with half the circuits blown and the other half stuck in a perpetual feedback loop, isn't it? You think you're ready for adventure, but the body goes, nope, we're staying in today. Absolutely maddening. Firstly, let's get one thing straight. Chronic fatigue is real, even if it feels like the universe is playing a particularly cruel trick on you. You've been through the ringer. You've faced it head on for years, and you're still here. That's not a small feat. It's not easy, especially with something as nebulous as this, where the cause and effect aren't always clear. You know, there was a time, a long time ago now, where I found myself on a little planet called Caliban 4. Beautiful place, lovely blue skies, but the weather, completely unpredictable. One day it's sunny, the next, catastrophic storms, raining lightning bolts the size of, well, something very large. Anyway, on this particular trip, I was feeling a bit worn out, running on half my usual energy. Still, I had a job to do. The people there were suffering. Turns out their weather system was controlled by a sentient AI that had gone a bit, well, cranky, you could say. Now there I was, stuck in the middle of a storm that I couldn't outpace. I wanted to run, to get to the control center, to save the day. But my legs just wouldn't go any faster. I was tired, properly knackered, and that's when it hit me. Not a lightning bolt, thankfully, but the realization that sometimes the only way forward is to stop. I found shelter in this small, broken-down weather station, a little outpost, forgotten in all the chaos. I was frustrated, just like you are now. Felt like I should be doing something. Like the universe would fall apart if I didn't keep moving. But then, I remembered something a wise person once told me. Even in the eye of a storm, there's stillness. It's not always about charging headlong into the battle, you see. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let yourself rest. So, I waited. I rested. I let the storm rage outside while I found a moment of peace inside. And you know what? That pause, it didn't stop me. When the time came, I still saved the day. I mean, of course, I'm the doctor. But that pause, that moment of stillness, it was part of saving the day too. Without it, I wouldn't have had the strength for the final sprint. And that's where you are now, isn't it? In the eye of your own storm. Frustrated because you want to keep going, keep adventuring. But your body's saying, hold on a tick. Let's catch our breath. And that's okay. It's not a setback, not a failure. It's just part of the rhythm of life. We all need our little weather stations now and again. A place to pause, recharge, and wait for the storm to pass. You've got time. Time is one of the greatest gifts, and it's on your side. Rest now, because when the storm clears, there'll be more adventures waiting, and you'll be ready.
The reason I talk about this stuff is I made the GPT available to the public. So if you use ChatGPT, you can go in the Explore GPT section and find this. It's called TARDIS Self-Care and Insight. And the first button is, let me tell you how this GPT works. Because it's really important that people know this. This is not therapy. This cannot be therapy. The only reason I've got a lot out of it is because I have done a lot of therapy in the past, right? So the idea is you message it as if it's a WhatsApp group, right? So if you want to use it, you want to use it. Anyway, okay. I hope that's been interesting.